Hey, Terry Little here. So, today I'm going to talk about overcoming crisis. This is something that a lot of people will have happen. You're going to have a crisis in your life, there's no way around it. And I think when you are in the midst of that, it's so important to make sure you cope with it in the best way possible. This summer, we had a huge family crisis. My husband contracted this really weird infection. And for the sake of privacy, I'm not going to go into details. But what happened was he ended up in critical condition for 3 days. When he came out of critical condition, his chances of survival and recovery from this particular infection were 50-50. So it was really, really scary. And so even after, there were months where we weren't sure if he would survive. So during that time, it was me and my 8-year-old daughter, and of course my stepdaughter, who was wonderful during this. It was really hard. However, we made it through really, really well, and I'm going to go over the choices we made in the midst of the crisis, and how if you are in a crisis, and this is life, you will be in a crisis. Someone will pass on, there will be accidents, there will be problems with your home, there will be financial problems. In the bigger scheme of things, there's tragic accidents, or who knows, crises happen. So the first thing you need to do in a crisis is to get real with the situation. If you shut down and you freak out, it's not going to serve you at all. As soon as you recognize there is a crisis, you have to be real. In our situation, my husband and I were real. It was horrific. It's like, all right, he might die. If he dies, what happens to, where do we move? What happens to assets? What would funeral arrangements be? And I know this stuff is horrific to think about having a conversation with someone you love, but it has to happen. You need to do it. If you are in a crisis situation, you have to be real about the worst possible outcome, and you have to address any moves you might have to make. So, obviously you're going to make, there's advice, don't make important decisions depending on the level. Yes, you do, you need to make important decisions during a crisis. You don't want to make split second decisions, you want to make conscious decisions. And for me and my husband, we actually sat down and wrote down a list. Accepting the crisis and mourning or being upset. It's okay to cry. My husband and I, when we finally got to be together, because for a few days, like I said, he had this weird infection, he was in quarantine, we couldn't even see each other, I couldn't bring my daughter there. We did hold each other and have a good cry, and that's okay. I'd been in previous crises in my life, and believe it or not, this is going to sound really weird, but I actually would schedule in my morning time, my time mourning, meaning my upset time, and I would just sit in the tub and cry for an hour and put my makeup back on and get back on it. And I know that seems cold, but it's really about having the best possible outcome in a crisis, because if you let yourself crumble or you're in denial, what's going to happen is the crisis is going to compound for all the things that you drop. The other thing during a crisis is you don't want to take anything else on. You want to keep your regular routine, especially when it comes to work and health and your supplements and exercising. You need to keep that routine. I know it seems crazy, but if you can maintain your health and your self-care during the crisis, you're golden. Meaning that you want to keep your performance and the things that take you to get there optimal. You do not want to slide off. You don't want to go get drunk. You don't want to just stay in bed all day. I mean, I understand wanting to stay in bed all day, and I deal with chronic illness, and sometimes I can barely get out of bed, but I still get out of bed. Sometimes it takes me some time, but I get out and I deal with what I have to deal with. So that's the second thing is, yes, you can take time to mourn. And the third thing is you don't want to take additional responsibilities, no new things. Just figure out what needs to be done, like what bills need to be paid, assets need to be moved or not moved or sold or whatever. Okay, if it's a financial crisis, you have to sit down right away and get a budget, and that's it. And realize and figure out what you have and what you don't have, and then a way how to get what you need. And sometimes that might be asking for help. So that's the other thing. 4, don't be afraid to ask for help. Reach out to people. Unfortunately, we don't have any family around here other than my stepdaughter, so we reached out to members of our wonderful church, Church of Christ in West Islip. Thank all of you. We reached out to them for some of them to watch Elizabeth for me while I was able to visit my husband, because our hospital nearest, Good Sam, is horrible. And we had to take him to Stony Brook, which is wonderful. And but Stony Brook is 40 minutes away. So, you know, we had to do what we had to do. And I think if we would not have gone to Stony Brook and would have gone to Good Sam, my husband would surely be dead. Sorry, but they almost killed me, Good Sam. So, yeah, don't go to Good Sam. Sorry, Good Sam. Feel free to sue me, but I can bring up all the stuff you did that you shouldn't have done when I was there. So, yeah, go for it. Anyway, sorry. Do not pressure other people for their expectations. I know you think people should have your back and you want them to have your back. Don't expect them to have your back. You can reach out and ask for help, but I have found during a crisis that that's when you get real, you find out who's who. And unfortunately, in my experience, when I've been in crises, the people I thought I could count on, I could not count on. There were a few that I thought I could count on that I was able to count on. But for the most part, you can't have any expectations of anybody else. You can support them and encourage them, especially if it's the family. Like my 8-year-old, she was fantastic. It was horribly scary for her, but I just kept encouraging her that we had to move forward. Share with those that are close to you. Of course, I was on the phone with my mother, who is my best venting ear, and my sister. I didn't tell them that I reached out to a few friends, but it was during the summer and people were on vacation, so I didn't post on Facebook, and I'm very personal like that. And my friends on vacation, they did not know, because let's face it, they're away having fun on vacation. I'm not going to ruin their vacation. There's nothing they can do, so I just skipped it. Maintain routine. This is so important. This is like the keystone. Those particular weeks where my daughter, when my husband was in the hospital, my daughter and I started working for a few weeks, filling in for people vacation at a barn I used to work at that I still ride at, and we were taking care of the horses. My daughter and I kept our routine, and that involved her getting up with me at 6:30 in the morning and going to the barn and feeding the horses, and her job was to water the horses, and she was working very hard, and it was wonderful, but we still maintained that routine. We still did the work we had to do. It was also during the 4th of July, also really a bummer, but we also maintained our routine. We go and see an orchestra play every year. In July, I think it's mid-July, and my daughter and I, even though my husband was in the hospital, we still attended those fireworks, and we still attended the parties, because you have to keep on keeping on. If you sit there, I mean, obviously if someone's got a few days to live, all right, you're going to spend time with them, obviously. But at the same time, you still have to continue with your routine, because your routine is what keeps you going. Literally, you've got to keep going in order to keep going. People crumble, they get in denial. It will not serve you. You are just compounding the situation of the crisis. All right, relaxation, meditation, prayer. I'm not saying go out and get drunk, but I'm saying take a nap if you need to take a nap, or you can find time for a nap. Meditate. Put some kind of prayer or self-help in your earphones. Lock yourself in the bathroom. Take a bath. Take a long hot shower. Make that time. Find those little bits of time to relax. It's really important. Focus on what helps you. Okay, what helps you? barring drugs and alcohol, okay, those seem like they'll help you, but they won't. Or eating yourself into oblivion, that's not going to help you either. However, a nice cup of tea for me next to my koi pond, that helped me. Exercise helped me. Taking my daughter on a walk with the dog in the park, we still did that because that helps you. So things that are those little walk on the beach. I know, like, what in a crisis do you have time? You just do these things because they're going to serve you. Do it. And of course, finally seek professional help or just ask for help. If you're really having a hard time or you see a therapist, need a therapist, reach out to your therapist. I have a wonderful pastor. I reach out to him. Oftentimes, if you're part of some kind of religious organization, you will find a wonderful amount of help. Sometimes families are heavily involved in sports organizations and they build a lot of relationships there. So, or like I said, just call up a therapist, and tell them you're in crisis or get a recommendation because that's really helpful. So that's it. So summing up, going through a crisis, be real about the crisis. You might have to make important decisions. Don't make them in a split second. Give them 12 to 24 hours. Write down pros and cons. Be very clear about the worst case scenario. Be very clear about the optimum outcome. Because sometimes for the optimum outcome, you kind of have to, for my husband, we had to get some experimental procedures or things that are kind of considered fringe, and they worked. So you've got to consider that and what resources you have. You've got to be real about it. Also, you can't freak out and be in denial. You have to keep on keeping on during the crisis and take care of yourself. Don't take on anything else, but deal with the things, all your bills, getting your kid fed, walking your dog, paying your bills. Like I said, keeping on top of that, going to work. Don't skip out on that stuff because it's just going to compound things, okay? Expectations of others, absolutely ask for help, but if people aren't doing what you expected them to do, just let it go because that's just diverting your energy away from the crisis. Of course, share with others, get the emotional support. Don't sit there and cry on the phone for like 4 hours a day because that's a waste of time, but make sure that people have your back, or if you're really breaking down and freaking out, make the phone call, but try to keep it to a shorter period of time. Of course, maintaining routine, exercise, eating right, sleeping right, going to events, not skipping out on things, still going to church. Keep your regular routine. Find a few minutes to relax, take a hot shower, take a bath, put on a meditation. Even if you don't meditate, you know what? Maybe it's time to start. Go to YouTube, find guided meditation for stress, and just stick it in your ears. That can make the difference for you. Focus on what helps you, professional help, and also learn from your experiences. There is a gift wrapped inside of every crisis. When you come out the other side, and whatever that other side might be, you will be a stronger person. You will have more depth to your life. You will have more depth, hopefully, to your relationships. Or maybe you will find that there's some people that you have to let go, and maybe you'll gain some new relationships. So regardless of how horrible things are, you have to remember the sun will shine again one day, and you'll be okay. So I hope you found that helpful.